Hey, what's up guys? You're watching Poot's Garage. This week we're actually continuing what we were working on last week. So last week I left you off with, I had to cut the video short because my footage was just too much. And this weekend I actually didn't work on anything. So we're still working on last week. This weekend I actually had to be out of town for the weekend. So I didn't really have time to work on anything. And I was gonna try and get my video up still on time, but this is gonna be late regardless. So let's pick up where we left off. And it's the next day. God, I'm horrible at this. This is take two doing this little part. I just talked forever and realized I never pushed record. So here we are. I really need to get better at managing my time on these weekends and bust this stuff out in one day so I don't spend 3 days doing these little projects like this. But right here, we got our drive shafts. And I got my old front shaft, my old rear drive shaft here. These are the ones that came off of this truck. I can't really use these anymore. Maybe I can use the front, but the rear is definitely going to be changed. So let me show you why. So this is our old front shaft here, this little short one. This unit here I might be able to save, replace the U-joints, and I might be able to use it as a spare, but I think it still might be just a hair short. But you can see this thing's extremely wore out. This U-joint's actually frozen in place. This whole unit here kind of binds up, but it might be okay. It might be usable at least. But the main reason I'm kind of replacing this is just because I guess these original front square body shafts are not very strong. I think it's more up in this area here. It was built by Saginaw back in the day. It's their components, and I think this cast materials that they were using back then were kind of weak. So we have a replacement coming for that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the rear shaft, this old long boy here. Now if you remember, this is a slip yoke style, and this would slide into the back of the transfer case. I swapped to a solid mount, which I did a slip yoke eliminator. So now I'm gonna have a solid mount here, such as that, and then I got to move the slip in the drive shaft into the middle of the shaft like that, and that'll be on the rear. So I can't really do anything with this old shaft here besides it being long, and I think this was already kind of an aftermarket unit or a custom built unit. So it's kind of nice. It's like 3.5 inches, which is unusually fat. I don't know what wall thickness it is, but yeah, it's probably fairly strong. Now I do want to show you guys all the angles and the lengths and stuff like that, and how I determined how I'm going to order these drive shafts up. Now I've already ordered these drive shafts. I did it a couple days ago, a couple nights ago. I already made the measurements. I angled everything out where I need it and figured it all out just to get things coming. I ordered them all from Tom Wood's Drive Shafts. I like working with them. They did a Jeep CJ5 shaft quite a few years ago for me. Not really that long ago. It was like 2 years ago. And that shaft was like, what was it, like 14, 16 inches long? It was a little tiny shaft, and it was the double carbon style, so it was this little stubby thing. It was kind of funny looking, but it worked great, and it's a good quality, super strong. They're a great company to work for, great customer service, stuff like that. So I like working with them. So you can just order everything you need online as custom as you want. You just start typing and they'll make it for you. So what I ordered from Tom Wood's Drive Shafts is a new front shaft. It's gonna keep the same GM style setup up here, but they use a lot stronger, better components. So all these parts should be a little stronger. Tube size, I'm not sure. I think it said it's a 2-inch tube. It's probably going to be stronger. This piece here is supposed to be a hardened unit, which is supposed to be better, and I think the splines here are going to be stronger. So like everything alone is just stronger. Now the stock shaft is the smaller 1310 U-joint, and so we are going to keep it all 1310 for now. Hopefully it holds together with those big old 40s up under there, but I think it'll be all right. We'll just have to be semi-careful on it. We'll upgrade that type of stuff later, you know, like if I ever get around to upgrading the output shaft on the transfer case, you know, and then if I go through the front axle and start doing some work on that, then, you know, I'll replace the yoke with the bigger one, and then we can get a bigger drive shaft in there. But for now, we'll do the GM style. It's already going to be an upgraded unit. It's already going to be a lot stronger, so I think we'll be perfectly okay with that. And then for the rear, what I ordered from them is a conventional shaft. I didn't get the double cardan. I don't need that on this truck because the drive line angles are fine. So this is a long unit. The one I ordered is 66 inches long, so that's pretty long. The longest you can order from them is 70 inches, so we squeezed in there just barely. This truck doesn't have a carrier bearing or anything like that, so we just get one big long one. Now when you got to go that long, you have to use their 3-inch pipe, you know, so it's actually a hair smaller than this one. It's a 3-inch, and then I upgraded again with a thicker pipe, so I'm getting like the 120 wall versus the 083 or something like that, which they recommend for if you're gonna be bashing it on rocks and stuff, and you know, we might have that possibility. Now this shaft is already stock with the 1350 U-joints on both ends, and that's what we put on the end of the transfer case with that slip yoke eliminator is a 1350, so we don't need to upgrade anything there. We'll have a good size U-joint in there, and then with that new drive shaft, it'll be a excellent unit. We're up under the truck here. That's my slip yoke eliminator on this NP205 transfer case. Nice little unit there. And so measuring the length is pretty easy. Basically all you're doing is going from that mating surface there where the bolt hole would be, and you go all the way down to the same surface way down on the end there. And so I get 66 in like, I don't know, a 1/4 inch or something like that. So that's no big deal. What you want to be careful on though is your angles. So you need to get like an angle gauge, angle reader, angle finder, whatever you want to call it. And you want to measure the angle of that guy right there and the angle of that guy. And right now my angles are way off. So a good way I found to measure angles is actually with your phone. All your iPhones have a measurement app that comes factory on them. And so you hit that, you can go to level, and you got a nice little level that gives you a nice direct reading. And so when I put this one up here on that level, I get 7 degrees. And when I come back here, I get significantly more. What am I at? 13, 14 degrees? That's not good. You need your angles to be very close to being the same. So if I got, what did I say, 7 degrees up there? I need 7 degrees over here. But now there's another step. Because this is still leaf spring, and leaf springs have a lot of axle wrap just in their nature. So when I accelerate, this pinion is actually going to move up a little bit. And that's going to change your angle. So what you actually want to do is set your angle a couple degrees less than what your transfer case is, so that when you accelerate and that pinion starts pointing up, now it's the same as the one up there. And if you're under hard acceleration, it might pass the angle that's up front, but you're still within, you're supposed to be within like 3 degrees of each other. So you set it low and then it accelerates, it should be even, and then if it goes past, then you're still within specification. Now if you'll notice, my rear axle is way off. The pinion's actually pointing way up, and that's because we did the shackle flip in the rear, which actually kind of drops everything down at an angle, so everything kind of went bloop. So now my pinion's pointing up. That angle probably is good if I wanted to run a double cardan joint on the drive shaft, but those cost a couple $100 more, and it's just really not necessary. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some shims on this, and we're actually going to shim this axle back down. I got some 10-degree shims, so we're going to drop this thing all the way down to like 4 degrees. And so that 4 degrees is 3 degrees less than the 7 degrees up there, so that should give us just right for that lower angle. And for the front drive shaft, we didn't have to do anything with angles. You really can't just shim the front axle, because then you change your caster angle on the axle and stuff too. We don't want to mess with all that. So the front's not as important because you're not always driving on it, and it has a different type of U-joint. So we're just gonna slam in the stock style shaft. We're not messing with angles, and that'll be just fine. And this is on paper here. On paper, this is all the notes that I took as I did all this. So I was measuring 6 degrees on the transfer case and 13 degrees on the axle. So my phone changed a little bit. 1 degree, it's not gonna make a difference. It's the difference between the two that we need to worry about. And there was my length I measured. And there's a 10-degree shim that I'm gonna do to correct this. I think that's the front drive shaft length there, 27 5/8. Then if anybody's really curious, these are U-joint sizes here. This is the 1310 U-joint, this is 1350. I wrote down some measurements on what they're supposed to be, just so I can verify what was in the truck to make sure nothing has been changed over the years. Cross width on the 1310 is a 3.2 inch, 1350 is 3.6 inch, you know, and the cap size is 1.06 and then 1.18, you know, so that was just for my reference. Just got to mention how nice of a day it is today. Holy cow. Probably around 65 degrees and just loving it. Took a little break and cleaned out the bed of the truck just a little bit. Kind of got all the cardboard and you know, my makeshift paint booth and everything out of there, and found a better spot for it here in the shop. Just kind of looking at everything I got here. I haven't thrown anything away as I've been working on this truck. We got everything from the old drive shafts here, the old shocks, all the old brake parts from the rear and the front calipers, and there is a lot of weight in here. There's my old starter. Then I got chains and 2 big tires, so I'm guesstimating there's 400 to 500 pounds still sitting in this bed in these full oil jugs. So that alone will kind of, you know, help the truck when I take all that out, it'll probably come up a 1/4 inch or so. It's also a good representation if I'm out wheeling and I got a truck bed full of gear and spare parts and tools and a proper spare tire and all this stuff that, you know, it's not gonna be dragging its butt on the ground everywhere. So we talked about the drive shafts, and hopefully we'll have those in, you know, 2 weeks maybe. Hopefully next week. I don't know how long they're gonna take, but next, let's talk parking brake cables. I know a lot of people asked me about these after I talked about them last time and how I'm gonna do it, and people need part numbers and this and that, and so I ended up just buying a universal parking brake kit off of Lugnut 4x4's website. They're the ones that I did the rear disc brake kit on for this truck. This is kind of their recommended kit that they sell, so I went with their stuff. I believe this is very similar, or it is the Low-Car parking brake kit. You can look them up online, like, I don't know, Summit Racing or whatever, and they sell like a universal kit too, and it looks identical to the parts in this, so they might be just kind of rebranding or something else, or it's not and it's completely different and whatever. But I'll show you what's in here. This is our parking brake. This is everything that comes with it. I believe, yep, we got some instructions. Universal emergency parking brake cable. Comes with all the little bits and pieces we need. This is designed for by Lugnut 4x4, so this is all their instructions. We got a hardware kit, and we have 2 cables. These cables are extra long, and they're made to be able to cut to length. This stuff over here, this is actually the hardware that comes with the calipers themselves. These springs have to go on the caliper when I put the cable through it and stuff like that. Put that on later. So let's open up one of these cables just so you can see what we got. These little zippy ties off. These things are long. Holding it up to myself, I think they're 8.5, 10 feet long, something like that. They're long boys. What we got is, this end is the permanent end. I believe this is the end that mounts to my bracket that's on the caliper itself. See if we can get the focus in. There. This is the end that's actually gonna mount to the caliper itself, so that's pretty self-explanatory. This goes on there. This spring will go through the end, and then this piece hooks onto the actual lever on the caliper that applies the brake and stuff. Pretty basic. And this is the end we're gonna be working with. So this end here, we can cut the sheath down, we can cut the cable down, we can do whatever we need to do with this end. This is our hardware. Hopefully you can see it past the rusty bench here. This kit is kind of configured that you can use a couple different styles of attaching the cable to what you got on the truck already, mainly on the parking brake pedal side. So my truck has basically just a threaded end coming out, and I got to attach to the threaded end. So I don't have to use this thing. This would be more for, this is for a different style if you need to attach this directly to, I think, the parking brake lever up under the, you know, inside the vehicle. But we don't need that. But what we are gonna do is we have this unit here, which I believe we actually have to hard attach this to the frame or body somewhere. And then the cables are gonna pass through here. Both cables will come through here. And then the cables will be attached using this little block here. You'll pass the cable through here, and it's got little set screws that you're gonna run down into the cable to hold it in place real good. And then that threaded section should attach to hopefully what's on the truck. These guys here are actually what's gonna be locked in to this bracket, so the cable will be locked into that. These pieces here, I'm not entirely sure what they go to yet, but yeah, that's basically it. It's pretty basic. So, oh, we also have these, there's 6 clamps up here, 6 clamps. These are just P-clamps that you attach the cable to as you run it along the frame or wherever you're going. So this should be the easy side to do. Let's see how it goes. Basically all it is that's going there, and that's going in there, and that's just gonna stick in there, and there's a huge hole for this deal to go through. So I'm gonna modify things just a hair because the hole is so big on this bracket, and this guy is just floating around in there, and it's not gonna sit very good. We're gonna add a couple washers to that just for my own peace of mind. You can see it still floats around, but it won't try and pull the pieces through. So we'll do that. All right, changed my mind again too. So I'm gonna run just a smaller washer on just the nut side, just because the nylon locking portion of that nut didn't quite have enough thread to grab onto. So we're gonna do that. I just gotta figure out how I'm gonna route this line. The good thing about this stuff is it's extremely flexible. It's not like the factory stuff that's super stiff. I don't like having it down below the axle here, but it is close to the tire, so hopefully it won't get too much attention from rocks and sticks. I gotta figure out how I wanna route this though, because I do wanna kind of get it up out of the way. We also have to get this spring in here, which doesn't really fit over that nut too well. It gets in there. Okay, I guess that's all that does. Floats like that in there. So we got the parking brake cables ran kind of where we want them to go. And next I actually got to trim one of these cables. This is what we did to route them. So we came out where we're supposed to. I stuck to the outside of the leaf spring and then shot across. And then, can't really see it. Right here's a factory bracket with a hole in it. Don't remember if that was actually for the parking brake before, but we're going to utilize that. We're going to come across and there's another factory hole there that we're going to utilize. And then we're coming over here to another factory hole that we're going to utilize. This I'm pretty sure is the parking brake cable from before. This had a weird, very generic parking brake setup on it. The factory setup is very primitive. The cable that we just followed from the far corner, I have not cut it and we're gonna use the full length. So these would not work very well for like a crew cab truck or something. They said they're long enough to work for anything, but nope, it's about as long as you can go for a long bed. So then the driver's side here, we ran up also. We went through the same bracket on this side, went through the hole, and then I ended up going up to this hole through the old exhaust hanger there. And then we'll come back down to this one and we're gonna go back to our deal here. Now I did mount the bracket that came with the kit right here. There is a break in square bodies where I think the later square bodies had a little bit better parking brake system to where you probably can utilize the stock cables all the way back, or you might be able to utilize more stuff up here, but this side just had like this floating cable that went on the bottom of the frame everywhere and it was really weird. But so we utilized the bracket. I drilled my 2 holes, I tightened the top bolt, did good. It's kind of just a self-tapper, crappy one, more for sheet metal, but it's plenty strong for this. I ended up breaking the lower bolt off when I was tightening it. It's like, god damn it. The bracket's super tight already though, so I'm like, you know what, we're just gonna leave it. It'll work. This bracket is not gonna take a whole lot of, what you wanna call it, like force when you tighten these cables, like when you apply the cables. That's all on the cable itself. This bracket is basically just supporting the outer sheath, which is not gonna take a whole lot of force. So that kind of just keeps it all from, you know, gives it a good solid anchor point so it doesn't flop around. But other than that, oh yeah, we did this setup here. Geez, it just gets more and more. So I took the factory stuff off of the factory studded section. This comes with a fine thread. This is coarse thread. So of course I had to drill this block out and slide it on, and then we use the factory bolts or the nuts to center it where we want it. We're just gonna put it right in the middle to give us plenty of room to adjust later on. And then these cables will just go through the sides there. And then once I get the other one cut, I'll bring that one through the top, and then you can just cinch them down with the little lock nuts, or what do you call those, jam screws, and that will be good. It'll just hang out there. But what I gotta do right now is I gotta trim this one off. I'm gonna trim it right there. I give myself a little extra cable. I'm trying to leave things a little long and a little floppy. I'll work on getting this stuff off the exhaust and stuff later, but I want to leave things a little bit long just so that suspension travel and different things, and just to make sure it's all good. And then if it is excessively long later on, I can trim it down a little bit more. But the worst thing I want to do is cut it too short. You know, and then you're screwed because you can't just make it longer. So we're gonna do our best to leave things a little bit long, and I think it'll probably actually work out the way it is right now. Once we trim this one and we can get that one set up in there, and then we can kind of finish tightening, I think, everything and give it a go. Alright, we've got everything permanently installed. I'm leaving these cables long, just for, you know, future adjustments that I might need to make. But for now, it's good. These are mounted up. Oh, I need to tighten these nuts still. We'll do that real quick before I move on to the next step. And then we got the old zip tie mod up here just to keep the cable off the exhaust there so we don't melt it. But other than that, all the routing is cool for now. I'll probably make changes later. And then I still have like P-clamps I can install to kind of keep things a little more, you know, like rubbing on metal bits and stuff like that. But for now, this is perfect until I get suspension moving and see if this is the exact length that I need it all to be. And if it's good, then we can kind of come through and clean things up later. And then I also plan on redoing this exhaust eventually, because I need to get rid of these old blown out glass packs and get some, I got some Flow Masters on the shelf that I need to get under here and do something a little different with. So yeah, we are done here. So I'm going to tighten up those 2 nuts over there real quick. Then we'll test it out. All right, first test. It goes down, it gets somewhat tight. and it doesn't bottom out, so that must mean that they are pulling tight. Let's see. You see the lever came forward a little, lever came forward a little. Now let's release it and see where it goes. That lever came back, and that lever came back. So I think we're good. I think we made something happen. So I guess one test is to make sure the truck doesn't roll. So parking brake is off right now. So if I pull my wheel chock out here, truck. Truck rolls. Set the brake. Truck rolls a lot less. Alright, so I think we're good. I think we got this. I think we're gonna make this happen. Truck shouldn't roll as much now. There probably needs a lot of things to break in, and those cables are probably gonna stretch a little while. The brake pads need to be broken in, so they're probably not grabbing the rotors very well. So there's a lot of stuff to go through still, but I think for now, we're gonna be good. Cool, so we got parking brake cables on, and they are semi-functional. I kind of went through and did a little adjustment procedure on them. Didn't really seem to make them hold any harder for now, so we're just gonna probably let the brakes break in a little bit, and maybe I just need to hit the pedal a little harder and not be such a wuss about it. But no, it's working all right. I'm still gonna keep the blocks behind the wheels because they aren't holding that great yet, and I have no drive shafts, so putting it in gear does nothing. I got one more thing to cover tonight, and that is my steering issue. So let's see if we can figure this out. So here we are in here again. This whole thing, this whole issue. So my problem with this, for anybody that's new here, is my pitman arm is real close to my high steer here. So I only have, I don't know, if I had to guess right now, 2 inches maybe. And that's not gonna clear. I only have 2 inches of compression before that would hit. So that's not enough. We need more. Now I did hope that when the suspension compresses, the axle will move backwards a little bit because the shackles are on the rear of the springs. So it will move back a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna swing back that far. So I have kind of thought about a couple of solutions, and one was to get rid of the high steer completely, put it back down below the springs and lose that, but to me that's just not as cool. The solution that I'm gonna go with though is actually, I'm gonna get a different pitman arm. So this pitman arm has quite a big drop on it. It's got 3.5 inch drop, and that actually keeps the drag link level where it's not bent. Let me give you a show. So if you notice, this is the drag link that's attached to the pitman arm. It's pretty much level all the way across. So ideally it's in a really good position the way it is. So I went on ORD's website, which is who I bought all the steering and suspension for this truck from, and I noticed that they have what they call a high clearance pitman arm. So this is I believe a 3.5 inch drop. They have one that's a 1.5 inch drop. So not only will that give me 2 more inches of clearance here, so that'll be a total of 4 inches, which is still borderline not enough, but I think it's actually gonna work out because if you notice, the steering box is actually at an angle, right? It goes up to the steering shaft and steering column and all that stuff. So this arm is at an angle also. So if I bring this pitman arm up 2 inches, it's not gonna go straight up. It's actually gonna come back because the distance between here and here are gonna remain the same. So it's gonna go like this. So it's gonna end up like back here. So in reality, that's actually gonna pull that drag link forward, and I think that will give us enough clearance. That with the axle moving backwards slightly should give us enough clearance to clearance everything. I think that is what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna buy it, we're gonna find out what happens, and hopefully everything works out perfect. The only modification you have to do really though, is when you run that pitman arm, is because it's so shallow and it comes up so far, you actually have to grind off like an edge part of that nut in the stud. You actually have to grind it off because it's gonna be right at the frame there. So you got to get it to clear that frame just a hair, but that's not that big of a deal. I can do a little grinding. I'm not scared of that. So we are gonna attempt to do that. Now the reason I haven't bought that yet, I wish I could have bought it last week, but they sell that pitman arm with an option of like 3 different holes on this end, and so I need to find out exactly what taper I have. I'm pretty sure this is what they call the 1-ton tie rod end on this one, but they have an option for the 1-ton tie rod end. They have the option for the, I guess, a stock drag link is a different size, or you can get a straight through hole for like a Heim joint or something. Got the tie rod out. Let's measure up these tapers, see what we got. So the top is 650, 640, and the bottom is 640 and 750. So I jumped on the ORD website just to verify, and these are the GM tie rod taper size. So I'll order up another pitman arm with the 1.5 inch drop, and I think that's gonna fix all of our issues. Well, I think that's it for this weekend. I got everything done that I wanted to get done. I did have those extra seals that I talked about earlier, but I'm not gonna put those in. It's just too late, and I don't wanna deal with it right now. There's a lot of disassembly that has to go on to do those, so we're not gonna take care of those right now. But hey, we got a whole bunch of things knocked off the list, and I pretty much have 2 things left that we just took care of that we got to order, and we're waiting on parts. So we got 2 things to get this thing out of this garage, and that's drive shafts and that pitman arm. So I think once we get those, we'll be able to take this thing for a test drive. So that's pretty exciting. So please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next week.